Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 135, with today's guest, Danny Flood.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. I'm Adam Franklin, and this is the show for people like you and like me who love marketing on the web. Today, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments where we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and also reveal the truth about what really works. The podcast is brought to you by our book, which is also called Web Marketing That Works. And there's a gift for you for listening, and that is the bundle of 33 marketing templates. You can get your hands on those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. So today's guest is Danny Flood. He's the author of at least 5 books, all based on hacking. So there's things like hacking email, hacking sleep, how to hack Upwork and make more money. And he wrote most of these in a very condensed period of time, which we're going to talk about on the show today. We touch on the power of rest and also go down a few different avenues when it comes to web marketing as well. So look, with that introduction, and I should also mention that he runs the Open World Mag website and also the podcast as well. He's an adventurer. He's traveled all around the world and has made a lot of his money through online channels. So we're going to talk a lot about that as well. So with that introduction, let's head over to the show. My name's Adam Franklin, and on the line, I have Danny Flood. How are you, mate?
Hey, Adam. It's great to connect with you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, you've got a whole bunch of interesting stuff going on. You've written 5 books last year. You travel all around the world and are what you'd call a digital nomad, meaning you're independent, location independent. Tell us a bit more about all the stuff going on in your world at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So my backstory, I graduated from university with art degree at the Art Institute and was left trying to figure out the next 40 years of my life and had kind of a quarter-life crisis trying to do that. So I started out freelancing. I created an agency and I was running that for about 4 or 5 years, digital marketing agency, and just kind of learning a lot of skills. I was working for free in the beginning, learning web design, SEO, online video marketing, doing all this stuff for clients. And then I was able to get that to, in about 2 or 3 years, to a 6-figure business where I systemized everything, outsourced all of it. I was working maybe 2 hours a day, so maybe 10, 12 hours a week. And I was booking one-way tickets to other countries like South America, Asia, and just communicating with my clients remotely. And, everything was working well. They were at the top of their Google rankings. They were getting leads and traffic, and I could just do whatever I wanted. So I was traveling around to, I think it's been, I lost count, but 33, 34 countries now. I've lived in several. Lived in Buenos Aires. I'm in Bangkok now, and been out here 2 years, just kind of traveling around. And yeah, after that I kind of got bored. I got bored with the agency stuff and working with clients, so I stopped doing that. And then I decided I want to write a book. And overnight, all my income shut off. So I was in the Philippines with living like a college student again. And I wrote that book. It was like a 300-page book. It was hit number 1 on the Amazon bestseller. And I realized I wasn't done. I wrote 4 more books and published 5 books within the same year. And until I published that book, I never made $1 online. That was my very first sale. And since then, I've created products for a bunch of different platforms like Amazon, Udemy. I have a digital magazine, books, podcast, and on pace to do more than 6 figures this year. I've launched an Indiegogo campaign. I'm going to do another Kickstarter campaign this year. And yeah, really just, testing stuff and just having the time of my life, with these business projects. So
that's cool. So what were the books on?
Yeah, sure. So the first book was kind of like everything I'd learned that I wanted to teach to my younger self as far as setting up a location independent business. It was called Buy Your Own Island. And it was really just about defining your biggest lifelong goals and helping to create a plan so that you work smarter, not harder. Because a book like 4-Hour Workweek, for example, was kind of lacking a lot of concrete case studies and just, that people could use that work now. So I wanted to create a book like that. And the other 4 books were just on like business hacks or life hacks, because I noticed that, I use platforms like Upwork, for example, and maybe 5 to 10% of the people on there would do well and thrive, while 80, 90% of people struggle to make a living. And so I focus on hacks because I would write about hacks on my blog, and then I would post these posts on my Facebook. And I noticed like a really disproportionate amount of clicks whenever I wrote about like a life hack or something like this that would give you an edge over the majority, I guess. And so I noticed, well, I might be onto something here. A lot of people seem to be interested in this. A lot of people are clicking through the page. So I used that feedback to write these books and had a lot of knowledge to share about freelancing and marketing, stuff like this. So that's what the other 4 books are about. Oh, and sleep hacking as well.
It sounds like a big undertaking just to do 1 book in a year, let alone 5. Okay, so what happened? You wrote the books, and then what was the next step after that? You got into the online courses, was it?
Yeah, so going back a little bit, like going back to hacks and stuff, like I would do experiments where here in Bangkok, I was living here for, it's been over a year, where I would want to write like 6,000 words a day to write these books faster. So what I found is that it would work really well whenever I was on like a bus or a train or a plane, whenever I was commuting. So I would go to the SkyTrain here, it's like a subway, and I would just plop down there with my laptop and I would just write these books while I'm on the subway. And I found that, I have no distractions. I wouldn't be connected to the internet. And, I could write 2,000 words before lunchtime. And then it's like, well, what do I do the rest of the day? Because all my work's done. So that really helped. I was able to write 1 book in like a month. And that was about a 30,000 word book, I think 30,000, 40,000 word book. And and then I found that I wanted to start doing courses. So I did a Udemy course, sleep hacking course. And I found that right after I wrote the book, I was able to create that course really quickly, I think within 2 weeks, that Udemy course. And it's done well, but Udemy hasn't really delivered as much as I'd like to. So I think now that I have kind of an audience, I've built up a list and a platform. I think I'm going to switch it around where I'm going to start not with low-priced books, but with higher-priced products. So do price skimming rather than penetration pricing, and then release lower-priced items over time. If that makes sense.
It does. So I know a lot of our clients and listeners and what have you struggle with the idea of creating so much content, and people will be listening going, well, 6,000 words before lunch, you're superhuman. A bit like Dan Norris has been on your show as well as this show before. What do you put it down to? Is it like, do you just love writing, or is it more like cutting off the distractions that the internet brings? Like, what's been key for you?
Yeah, I think you really need to immerse yourself in the topic of what you're writing about. And by that, I don't mean just research, because I think research can be time wasting if you have like 20 open tabs in your browser, but just being really obsessed with it and having a notepad and writing down all the ideas, outlining, and then just filling it out, I think. And also, as far as, writing better, I think that you need to turn your editing brain off. You need to not critique yourself. You need to just pour it all out. I think I heard an expression once, I think it was Ernest Hemingway, that said, you write when you're drunk and you edit when you're sober. And that's kind of how it is. So you don't worry too much about the quality. You kind of wake up the next day and then you edit it. But then again, really immersing yourself. So what I try to do is I try to batch activities where I'll devote 1 day to just doing one thing, and I'll shut off email. I'll check my email tomorrow. I won't do any of these other things, and then only focus on writing. And so if you can divide maybe your half a day into doing just one thing, or a whole day into just single tasking, I think that's really important, because once your brain is already going one way, it's really hard to stop it and then start to go another direction.
That's interesting, because I know you talk about a flow state, and you've talked about the fact that you've written a book on sleep hacking. What sort of impact does rest and sleep, plus also being in that flow state, have on particularly writing and content creation?
Yeah, sure. So I was really influenced by the work of, I can't remember his name right now. I'm drawing a blank. There was a expression that I heard. Hold on one second. Let me look it up. It's ultradian rhythms. And this person argued that we have ultradian rhythms when we're awake as well. And was really arguing about the 90-minute solution. Tony Schwartz, that's his name. He's president of the Energy Project. And what he says on his website is that humans are not machines. And once I started to study his work, that kind of became the basis for the sleep hacking book that I wrote and the course that I created, and this whole concept of the rest activity cycle. And I went through an experiment where for 3 or 4 months I was doing polyphasic sleep, where I slept only 4 hours a night and took naps during the day, 20-minute naps. And also really learning about the circadian rhythm and being able to take advantage of the periods when I was the most alert and then incorporating strategic rest during my down periods. So in the circadian rhythm, for example, it's really a big part of it is affected by your body temperature. And at around 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning tends to be when I experience my highest alertness. And then around 3 p.m. is when that starts to dip. So that's when I'll take a nap, and then it starts to increase again around 5 p.m. So once you understand that, humans are not machines, that we're not meant to run continuously for 12 hours straight or 14 hours straight, however a lot of entrepreneurs do, then you can really start to do a lot of fun things to hack that so that you're actually showing up when you work. It's really about managing your energy, not your time. And another important thing I think is, there's a lot of important things, but willpower, for example, like being able to actually cultivate willpower inside. So I think that eating low glycemic foods, high in proteins, helps me to increase my willpower. Whenever I eat like starchy foods with foods full of sugar, I just kind of burn out. So things like that really influence how well you perform, I think.
That's interesting, because I often find that I have definite periods where I'm inspired and alert and create lots of stuff, and other times where I'm just flat and I can't write. Even if you sort of force me to, it wouldn't be very good quality. And oftentimes for me, it's late at night, like from, say, after dinner, like 8 o'clock through till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes if I get up early, it's been awake for an hour or two. But it is interesting for me anyway, when I'm trying to do my creative stuff, which is the writing, I find nighttime works really well. Is that normal, or is that common?
Yeah, Adam, I deal with it every day, and I think everyone can relate to that exactly. I think it is pretty normal. And what I tend to do is, in my first book, Fire and Island, I line up this productivity pyramid where you divide, your most important activities in you divide your activities in 4 different quadrants. So the top level, you have high lifetime value, high dollar per hour, low dollar per hour, and 0 or negative value. And then kind of grouping and categorizing those so you know what to focus on. But now what I do is I divide my work into 3 different levels. So I have my level 1 work is when I need to be in that flow state, when I'm doing a podcast interview or when I'm writing copy or writing a book. And then I have level 2 work where, so if I'm kind of like maybe editing a podcast, for example, or something that doesn't require me to think too much, or preparing a blog post, for example. And then there's level 3 work, which is what you just described, where you want to write, you're in that mood where you want to write, but you can't. Everything inside you says, I just want to rest. You don't feel like you're at your best. And that's the time when you really need to rest, or can't rest, then just do maybe you can answer emails or do stuff that doesn't require a lot of awareness and doesn't require that flow state.
So if you're a marketer or a business owner, sort of the moral of the story is, don't force yourself to write content or create marketing articles. If you're not feeling it, just go with the flow, wait till you are really into it and in the zone, and just sort of do as much as you can then, and give yourself permission to switch off once you've ridden that sort of high for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can get so much done with 1 hour of really focused, intense, productive work than if you were in a level 3 state, for example, and it would take you maybe 4 or 5 hours, and you'd have to throw it away. Whatever it is that you wrote, you might have to throw it away the next day.
Yeah, and that's quite common too, isn't it?
So it's really about working smarter, not harder. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they push the gas pedal to the floor all day long, and that burns fuel really inefficiently, and you're more likely to crash. So
it's a big struggle, I think, because a lot of times people say, just hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think sometimes that's misinterpreted as working every hour of the day, whereas I certainly don't interpret it that way. I see hustle as doing brave work, doing the courageous stuff, where you could get rejected, like reaching out to people or publishing a book, not necessarily just working, because, there's 24 hours in a day, and you may as well try and work as many as you can. But I think sometimes entrepreneurs and business owners do just fall into the trap of working for the hours. But I think there was something Tim Ferriss said that was interesting, that being busy is just a form of laziness, because, you can easily find enough time in the day. If you recognize your level 1 states and you're productive, and you can actually do good quality work and still have enough time for everything else that's recreation or rest or socializing, which I try and keep in my mind anyway, because you do see so many people burning out when they decide to go out on their own. And even employees in companies, they're just working more and more hours, but it doesn't always translate to productivity, I don't think.
No, it doesn't. And Tim Ferriss also said that you have to have the discipline to do less. And he was actually speaking about working out, lifting in the gym, where people work 5-6 days a week in the gym, but they don't have any gains. Well, you can work out just one time in the gym, and gain a lot of muscle that way. And Tony Schwartz, whom I mentioned earlier, he gives the example of runners. And if you look at sprinters, give everything they have for a sprint, and they always have so much energy, like Michael Johnson, Usain Bolt, they have so much vitality. But then if you look at like long distance runners, like they're really serious looking, they're really gaunt, really thin, they look really weathered and worn. So if you look at or breaking your work down into series of sprints where you're just like giving 120% rather than trying to give 25 or 30% all of the time.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I think, with the Tim Ferriss stuff with the 4-Hour Body, I stuck to his program for a while, and seemed like we were doing hardly any time at the gym. Like I think it was maybe a 15 to 20 minute workout 2 or 3 times a week, which didn't seem like that much at all. But, you stuck to it, and it actually did get good results, and the impact of rest was huge. And I know my roommate and coach, he's a marathon runner himself and boxing trainer, and the impact that rest can have on your peak performance is huge. And it's, again, a discipline, as you say, because too many people rush into doing more exercise or more training, not actually realizing that it's to their detriment.
Yeah, exactly. And I went through the exact same thing that you did I did Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Body workout. I think I did the Occam's protocol. Do you know that one, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I spent 6 months in Asia, and I just returned back to California, and I lost a bunch of weight. I think it was 150 pounds, and then I gained 15 pounds in about a month doing this Occam's protocol. And it was basically just working out once every 5 days, and just doing the right workout so that I actually achieve the objective that the workout is supposed to accomplish, where I get to muscle failure. And that's the objective, and then I'm done.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, carry on.
Yeah, so I mean that's a great lesson there. I think you need to get the objective, to complete the objective, and then you're done.
It's funny, because like doing bench press or something to failure, and then having someone help you so you can just keep going as much as you can till you can not do it anymore, and then like the next 2 or 3 days later, then it's your legs or it's another part of your body. Like it does feel like you're not doing a whole heap until you sort of understand that the muscle needs to reach that point in order to grow and everything else, not just do more volume of less intense sort of workouts. I think it was really eye-opening. I had not expected those sorts of results. And again, when I was also doing marathon training with my roommate and coach, like the impact of like just small changes. I wasn't doing any more volume, but I was doing some more speed work and what's called tempo runs and interval training as well. So just mixed up the activity that I was doing, and the actual output and the results that I got at the end of the day was like huge. You don't automatically think that doing less work or different work is going to pay off more than actually working harder. So it's been really eye-opening. Yeah.
I think another lesson there too is that a lot of people don't define their goals when they go to the gym. They just want to go there to be healthy or to lose weight or to gain weight, but they don't actually take an actual measurement of where their waist is now and track their progress. And it's the same in business. Josh Weitzkin, when he learned how to play chess, he learned how to play chess he would just start by checkmating the king. So starting with that end goal in mind, where a lot of people, when they learn how to play chess, they'll learn the opening moves. And I think that's what a lot of people do in business, in fitness, where they're just learning how to do the curls, the arm curls, without actually starting from the end goal and reverse engineering from there. I think that's an important thing.
And so much of that applies to marketing too. Hey, you can just get caught up in doing all this different activity, writing articles for the sake of writing articles. But if you actually know what you want to achieve, you can put the logical steps in place and work backwards to actually see, well, is this podcast going to be worth doing, or is this blog article worthwhile, and what's it contributing to? Like, what's the next step of this whole journey that you want people to go on with you?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at now too. I'm kind of changing my strategy. Like we talked before this call, where I'm kind of switching more to growth hacking and making sure that I have that end goal in mind, working backwards from there. And yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned publishing articles, because I definitely know what it's like to publish a bunch of articles but not get a lot of views or return from it. It's really time-consuming work, but I'm really focused on growth hacking again and starting with that end goal in mind. And I just interviewed a guy on my podcast, Austin Allred, who he published 3 blog posts on his blog, and he would use these to build his funnel. And he was getting 1,500 email subscriptions per day just from these 3 blog posts. And they were basically just chapters of this ebook that he's selling through Kickstarter. They funded this Kickstarter within 4 hours on the first day. And all he did was he just posted these 3 blog posts, and he would repurpose this content from his book and use it on Reddit. So he has top posts on Reddit startups, I think, and Reddit growth hacking, Reddit entrepreneur. And he would just put the chapter of his book, post a chapter of his book to Reddit, people would love the content because it's so valuable. And then they would click through to his blog and then sign up for his mailing list. And then on his mailing list says, all right, we're going to launch the Kickstarter in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then they were able to fund it in 1,500 subscriptions a day, and they're able to fund it within 4 hours.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's effective use of your time.
Yeah, so that's an example of really working smarter, not harder, and only publishing 3 blog posts, which are really just repurposed content from your book. Because I do a lot of book marketing. I consult with a lot of authors, and so many authors, they sell less than 10 copies of their book, and it's only a $2.99 book. So it's
that's an exaggeration, or is that for real?
It's pretty funny because it's sad, Adam. You laugh, but I really feel for these people because they put a lot of work in this. I mean, it's really like their baby.
And they're really selling like 10 copies or like under 100 copies sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's because they don't start with the opening goal or the end goal in mind. They start with learning how to move the pawns forward, but without knowing, how to get the book, what people actually want, writing a book that people want in the first place, and how to get it up the rankings in Amazon, how to actually write copy that will sell it, things like this.
Yeah, that's true, because I think a lot of authors actually want to write a book, and if that's their goal, that's what they do. They write a book. But if you want to write like a best-selling book or sell a certain number of thousand copies or whatever, that's a different goal again. Because some authors, I reckon, aren't so fussed about how many copies they sell, or aren't focused on it in a way that's actually going to move the needle at all. But they write a book, they're an author, and that's sort of like their goal, which they achieve, but not the selling part.
Yeah, well, one thing you can do Charlie Hoehn? He was an assistant for Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
He got the idea for his book, I think it's How to Cure Your Anxiety, because he just wrote a blog post about it. He wrote this blog post and people really engaged with it. There were a ton of comments on it. And he's like, well, I really have an idea here. This is something I can turn into a book. And I think that's the right way to start out writing a book, not just by taking everything you know and putting it into a book, which is what I did with my first book. But one thing you can do, another thing that's really easy is if you have a blog, you write blog posts, post them to your Facebook fan page, and then just boost those posts and look at what people are interacting with. Because if your post gets a lot of likes, but no one's clicking on it, then you probably shouldn't write a book about that. But if you write this post and you see like, wow, this post got like 500 clicks, I might be onto something here. And then you can write a book. Yeah,
there's a lot of good data you can get from your blog, isn't there? And emails, subject lines, or click-through rates of what you actually send out to your subscribers to inform what you might choose to focus on the book.
Yeah, exactly.
So what sort of closing pieces of wisdom would you have to share with our listeners, or anything you'd like to get off your chest before we call it a day?
Anything I want to get off my chest? Well, I guess I can kind of summarize what we talked about in this interview.
Please.
So I guess just some concepts, that we talked about, where beginning with the end goal in mind, I think is really important, and being able to reverse engineer from there. If you're just starting out at something and you don't really know what the end goal actually is, which is a lot of cases, it always happens with me as an entrepreneur, then, reach out to someone and consult with them. Find someone who knows more than you do. And rather than, I guess, what I do often is if there's someone who's an expert at something and you're not an expert, rather than work for them, offer to do like a joint venture with them. Say, look, I can do this. You have this expertise. Let's do a book together, or let's do a course together. And you can really learn a lot that way. And really define what it is you want, and work smarter, not harder if you can. And anything else you want to ask, or anything that I should touch on?
No, look, that's great. I like to have about 20, 25 minutes on these calls. And I think what you've said is so important, that work smarter, not harder. And the fact that you actually do better work, more productive work, more creative work once you're rested, once you can identify when you're in the flow state, or that level 1 high level of alertness and high level of concentration.
And also just look at it all as like a game, just have fun with it. Don't be attached to any outcome, because, you always got to try new things. I'm always trying new things. I'm always running ads or putting products in new places and then just trying to promote it. So whatever you do, just get it out to the market quickly and, see how people interact with it, because you never know anything until you see how your prospective audience responds to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, get it out to the market, because you can spin your wheels, you can overthink things, and if you don't actually get it out, then it's a whole lot of wasted effort, and all that level 1 state you put into such a project it just gets wasted, which I'm sure so much does never see the light of day. So no, that's a really good point to finish on there, Danny. Get it out to the market and then see what the market says. Then you can iterate, improve, abandon, or whatever, but at least you've shipped it and at least you're making that progress. Danny, where can people go to find out more about you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a podcast. You can go to openworldmag.com. Also have a blog on there. And it's not just about entrepreneurship. It's just about people doing a lot of inspiring, extraordinary things. So we've interviewed a lot of travelers. We've interviewed lifestyle designers, location-independent entrepreneurs. But if you go to the entrepreneurship section or the podcast section, there's a lot of articles there related to book marketing, email list building, remote work, how to build a remote company, systemizing, a lot of fun stuff. So
awesome. Well, we'll check that out. Danny, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. Sorry it ran a little bit long.
No, too easy. That's great. It was all good stuff. Thank you.
Take care.
And that's a wrap for my chat with Danny Flood. Very interesting chat, and I was very interested, as you could tell, by his notion of getting enough sleep in order to do your best work. So whether that's writing blog articles or writing books or whatever type of marketing content it is that you're creating, you can't just force it, and you can't just work every hour of the day and expect good quality stuff to come out. So really, the importance of rest, the discipline of not being busy all the time is really the key, I guess, in what we've uncovered today to actually produce the quality of work which then stands the test of time and then actually does free you up, as opposed to just feeling this relentless pressure just to always be producing stuff. And of course, if it's not good quality, then it's not going to have any impact. It's not going to move the needle at all. And you'll be stuck feeling like you've got to do more and more, when in fact the opposite is true. If you do less, you rest a bit more, produce good quality stuff and ride the inspiration waves when you have it, then that is going to be a much better result. So really fascinating chat with Danny. If you haven't already downloaded our marketing templates, please go ahead and download the 33 marketing templates from our book. The book is Web Marketing That Works. The URL you need to head to is bluewiremedia.com.au. I hope you enjoyed the interview. The plan is always to deliver actionable advice, and Danny delivered that in spades today. If you have feedback or questions or want to drop me a line, shoot me an email at adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. If you've enjoyed the show, then I'd love it if you took 60 seconds now to head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave us a rating and review. It makes a big difference to our visibility on iTunes and our ability to attract good quality guests like Danny. So thanks for listening to the end, and I'll see you on the next show.